The Image Alchemist. Cryptic Machiavellian tactics that made Taylor Swift rise. If you think something about Taylor Swift feels off, this video found you for a reason. Because this is how Taylor Swift uses Machiavelli's manifesto behind the curtains. It all started 500 years ago, when Machiavelli wrote The Prince, a book so dangerous it was banned for revealing how power really works. He said rulers must appear good even when they're not, that survival depends not on truth, but performance. Now look closer. In a world ruled by perception, the same doctrine didn't die. It evolved, hidden in plain sight, glittering under stage lights. When you look closely at Taylor Swift's music, it makes you wonder, did she study Machiavelli too? Every lyric is Taylor's negotiation for authority. Welcome to the lesson they don't teach in politics or PR. Welcome to the Prince 2.0. Lesson 1. Change skins before they try to skin you. Power doesn't die. It mutates. Machiavelli knew this before anyone else. To endure, a ruler must shed their image before the world grows bored of it. A prudent man, he wrote, should always follow in the footsteps of great men and imitate those who have been supreme. But imitation is only camouflage. The true lesson is metamorphosis, to mimic just long enough to steal the crown. Taylor Swift understood that long before her critics did. She entered the world as the perfect construct, America's sweetheart, blonde, harmless, grateful, born and raised in a small town. Then she watched that mask decay. The crowd that once adored her began to demand her downfall. So she did what Machiavelli would have advised. She executed the old version of herself. Hear it in her own words.
I know places, they are the hunters, we are the foxes.
What people perceive as a romantic line was just a tactic. The fox survives by appearing small, delicate, forgettable, right until it slips through the snare. Swift learned to weaponize perception. She gave the public what it wanted just long enough to make them predictable. Then she vanished and returned as something new. Country curls became red lips, innocence became vengeance, reputation became a resurrection. Every era is a controlled burn, destroying evidence before others can use it. Machiavelli said a prince must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. Swift became both. The fox watches, calculating. The lion strikes, unblinking. She studied her predators, tabloids, exes, executives, and learnt their desires. Then she learned to feed them illusions. That is how Taylor uses power psychology. When you control the narrative of your own destruction, you decide when the story ends. Every scandal became fertilizer. Every betrayal became a rebrand. She turned punishment into prophecy. That's how Machiavellian adaptation works, through anticipatory survival. In politics, this is called preemptive transformation. Destroy your own weakness before someone else can expose it. Swift did it publicly, ritualistically. The old Taylor isn't dead. She's archived, a retired persona, preserved as a myth to feed the new one. Listen to her confession right here. That isn't submission, it's espionage. The mirror ball reflects what the room needs to see while hiding the one controlling the light. Every reflection earns sympathy and buys time. That's the secret. People don't destroy what they still think they're shaping. Swift allows her audience to believe they're sculpting her image, when in truth, she's studying theirs. Every costume, every caption, every apology is calibration, testing how much she can bend before they realize she's pulling the strings. Machiavelli warned that those who stay still become targets. The fox survives because it keeps moving, shedding one skin before it stiffens. Reinvention, then, is not vanity, it's armor. In Machiavelli's world and ours, illusion is the most durable form of power. Lesson 2. Control the narrative. Control the crown. Power doesn't fade. It migrates to whoever owns the version of events. Behavioral science now confirms what Machiavelli intuited. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. He meant that control over belief outweighs control over territory. Force provokes resistance. Belief sustains obedience. Taylor Swift learnt this truth in a world where exposure is both a weapon and currency. When her reputation collapsed, instead of denying stories, she expanded them, absorbing criticism until it became part of the mythology. She blurred authorship so completely that the audience could no longer tell where journalism ended and performance began. Machiavelli understood this instinct. He advised princes to govern perception, not reality. And Swift executed it in her career. Every lyric release, interview pause, and calculated absence acts as a stimulus loop, a behavioral cycle designed to reward curiosity and dependence. Psychologists call it variable reinforcement. You never know which clue will reveal meaning, so you keep searching. That mechanism powers gambling, religion, and fandom. She wove it into marketing. Each hidden symbol gives her audience the illusion of discovery. The more they decode, the deeper they attach. She turns spectators into collaborators, then collaborators into defenders. In behavioral psychology, this is co-creation bias, when people protect the systems they helped build. Machiavelli warned that deception works best when it feels voluntary. Swift's strategy turns curiosity into complicity. Her fans willingly build the labyrinth that conceals her power. Every time they analyze a lyric or debate intent, they extend the structure. The empire grows invisibly, fueled by interpretation. Then comes the confession cycle.
I'm only cryptic and Machiavellian 'cause I can.
It may sound playful, but has a hidden purpose. By admitting manipulation, she disarms accusations. Self-disclosure resets the moral scale, a form of strategic vulnerability. Psychologically, this evokes the Ben Franklin effect. People forgive more easily when they feel trusted with secrets. The confession becomes bait, and the listener feels chosen, not deceived. Machiavelli's prince never hides ambition. He reframes it as necessity. Swift follows that code in full daylight. When critics accuse her of control, she responds with meta-commentary, songs about the act of manipulation itself. That technique exploits cognitive dissonance. The mind resolves discomfort by reinterpreting power as artistry. The audience calls her honest because she admits to deceit. Her narrative operates like stage propaganda. Constant motion prevents scrutiny. She releases versions, remixes, re-recordings, each a controlled echo of the last. The signal never stops, so the story never stabilizes. Machiavelli warned that static rulers invite rebellion. Swift ensures her mythology evolves faster than criticism. In this system, transparency is the camouflage. She reveals just enough pattern to appear genuine, then changes it before anyone maps it. That's why the scandals fade while the legend strengthens. The public believes it's witnessing vulnerability, yet what they see is calibration. A ruler who governs perception through endless reinterpretation. For Machiavelli, the perfect sovereign shaped morality through spectacle. Swift performs the same calculus on a global stage. The crowd mistakes empathy for access, confession for connection, mystery for authenticity. By the time they realize they've been enlisted, they're already part of the empire's defense. Lesson 3. Turn loss into legend. Machiavelli lived by the rule, where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. He was describing psychological endurance, the ruler's ability to see destruction not as punishment, but as purification. Collapse is a filter. It exposes those who mistake survival for victory. In 2016, Taylor Swift was dismantled in public view. The digital mob named her deceitful, manipulative, overexposed. The snake emojis formed a collective sentence of exile. Most would beg for narrative correction. She withdrew instead. Silence, in her case, was not surrender. It was reprogramming. Machiavelli warned that mercy is a luxury. The effective ruler doesn't request absolution, they redirect judgment. When reputation fractures, reconstruction must begin immediately. Not to restore the old image, but to rewrite its architecture. Swift's Reputation album served that purpose. She turned her scandal into a symbol of power. Machiavelli's principle, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both, was psychological, not sadistic. Fear stabilizes attention. It keeps devotion from decaying. Swift reframed public hostility into anticipation. The serpent became her insignia. Her name, once used for mockery, became a signal of resurgence. In I Did Something Bad, she exposed the mob's hunger for punishment. The lyric flipped audience psychology. Outrage transformed into complicity. Those who condemned her became proof of her prophecy. This is Machiavellian emotional inversion, the conversion of humiliation into status. Swift used collective aggression as raw energy for myth-making. In dark psychology, this resembles trauma reframing, the deliberate recontextualization of attack as initiation. Pain becomes proof of superiority. Each insult, visual and lyric in Reputation worked as a conditioning loop. Audiences relived her downfall while subconsciously reinforcing her power. She demonstrated emotional detachment, the same trait Machiavelli prized in rulers. Detachment doesn't erase emotion, it converts it into fuel. Swift embedded this principle into repetition, the cyclical resurrection.
But I got smarter, I got harder in the nick of time. On me, I rose up from the dead, I do it all the time.
That line encodes a behavioral model. Normalize collapse, then script revival as inevitability. Once the audience expects her return, outrage loses value. Machiavelli warned against dependence on fortune. Fortune, he said, must be managed, controlled through calculated risk. Swift's pattern since 2016 follows a controlled volatility cycle. Provocation, disappearance, re-emergence, dominance. Each stage manipulates audience attention spans and desensitizes them to failure. In psychological terms, she exploits predictive familiarity, conditioning the public to associate controversy with renewal. Reputation was not for revenge. The visual language, black serpents, thrones, mirrors, coded authority without apology. She withdrew empathy and replaced it with awe. Victimhood once imposed on her, became a performance frame. Audiences crave redemption arcs. She supplied them endlessly, without ever conceding guilt. Machiavelli's rulers understood perception under siege as opportunity. The crowd tests the ruler's resolve. Endurance becomes evidence of legitimacy. Swift implemented that insight perfectly. This is adaptive dominance, a core Machiavellian tactic. Instead of resisting narrative death, she turns it into ritual renewal. Every empire of influence depends on symbolic resurrection. She cleverly uses humiliation to her advantage. That is the psychology of resilience elevated to power engineering. Swift's Snake era was social conditioning. By scripting her own execution and revival, she taught the audience to equate destruction with spectacle. Machiavelli would have recognized this as perfection. Power reborn through its own ashes, loyalty extracted from fear, and ruin turned into prophecy. Lesson 4. The crown belongs to the one who holds the masters. Machiavelli understood a primitive law of power. People will tolerate murder before they forgive dispossession. Take a life, you spark grief. Take what someone believes is theirs, and you ignite war. Ownership is the spine of authority. Control the infrastructure, and you control every narrative built upon it. Thrones are engineered through property, land, law, or, in the modern age, intellectual capital. Taylor Swift learnt this the hard way. When her masters were sold, the transaction wasn't just financial, it was territorial. Her voice became someone else's asset. She didn't lose music. She lost dominion. So she didn't protest. She recalibrated. Taylor's version was reclamation in its rawest form. A Machiavellian move disguised as sentiment. She didn't fight the system. She replicated it, then redirected the loyalty pipeline. Fans thought they were reliving memories. They were, in truth, abandoning the old regime. Machiavelli warned rulers never to rely on structures they don't control. Build your own fortress, he said, so betrayal becomes irrelevant. That's exactly what she did. Converted artistic legacy into intellectual property she owns outright. The replica became the replacement. The original became obsolete, profitable, but powerless. That is the psychology of dominion. Ownership creates dependency. Once the audience tied emotional meaning to the re-recordings, the old masters lost their leverage. The economic engine moved, but so did the myth. Culture followed the copyright. I'm a vigilante, always taking care of business. Sounds playful, until you realize it's doctrine. Morality is decoration. Authority is the end game. Machiavelli never cared whether a ruler looked noble, only whether they remained unchallenged. The old label still holds the files, but the files have no pulse. Cultural value has migrated to where the control lives. That is narrative displacement, when emotional allegiance overwrites legal possession. You get older, but your lovers stay my age isn't just a lyric. It's an inheritance clause. Time will age the masters. Her ownership will not. Machiavelli would call it the purest execution of virtue. Not luck, not rage, but calculated restoration of power. So precise that fortune is forced to comply. Lesson 5. Turn worship into warfare. Machiavelli never mistook love for loyalty. Men have less hesitation in offending someone who makes himself loved than someone who makes himself feared. Affection is luxury. Control is a science. The ruler's goal is not to be liked, but to be embedded, to dissolve the line between follower and subject until obedience feels self-generated. True power is not enforced, it is internalized. Machiavelli understood that the most efficient ruler doesn't command the crowd, he designs the crowd. He replaces duty with identity, so that defending the throne becomes indistinguishable from defending the self. Loyalty in its final form is not devotion, but absorption. The subject does not follow the leader, he becomes a limb of the leader's intention. That is the darkest truth of governance. Once the mind bonds to the symbol, rebellion feels like self-mutilation. He who becomes master of a people by winning their support can more easily maintain himself than he who comes to power against their will. So the wise ruler does not suppress emotion, he weaponizes it. He scripts rituals, implants symbols, manufactures significance, and lets the followers build the prison with their own desire. That's why the modern ruler needs no army. The followers are the army. Every hashtag is a banner. Every repost is recruitment. Every public defense is unpaid enforcement. Taylor Swift is merely the modern execution of this doctrine, not a leader who asks for loyalty, but one who conditions it. The feuds are not accidents, they are drills. The inside jokes are not cute, they are passwords. The illusion of intimacy is not kindness, like it is structure. Once admiration fuses with identity, dissent stops being disobedience, and it becomes heresy. Machiavelli would not marvel at this. He would not. He knew the darkest rule of power. You do not rule bodies, you rule belief. And once belief is captured, the chains no longer need to be seen. The crown is invisible now, but the empire is everywhere. And now the danger is sharper than before. We live inside the illusion of freedom, unaware that every content we come across scripts our thoughts. The content we consume doesn't entertain, it instructs. We move, react, desire, exactly as designed. Puppets still, only this time the strings are invisible. If this opens your eyes, don't scroll away. Subscribe so the algorithm remembers minds like yours still exist. Because awareness in an age of performance is the last form of rebellion.